Hello again and welcome back to my sewing room. Today I'm showing you how I make the border blocks for the outside of the PRIM quilt. My PRIM Steps block finishes at 10 by 16 and it goes all the way around the outside of the quilt, and then the stars are in the corners, and I showed you how to make that block last week. I really love how this simple pieced block surrounds the applique blocks in the quilt. It's simply made with 2.5-inch cut strips, and you use a 2.5-inch square in the center, and I made those all red. All of the cutting for the PRIM Steps blocks are in the sew along guide, as well as how to put the quilt together after you complete all of your blocks. I have a link to my blog and the sew along guide here in the description of this video. Okay, so here I've got one PRIM Steps block all cut and laid out on the design board. Okay, so when sewing it together, I just start in the center and with the square, and I sew one of the shorter strips next to it using an accurate 1/4-inch seam allowance. My Seam Sew Easy guide that I have on to my machine really helps with the accuracy. You just simply follow the 1/4-inch line. Now you could press this first seam, but I like to add the other strip on the other side and then press both seams at the same time. Now I'm not chain piecing this block because I'm only sewing one at a time, so I'm running little scraps of fabric under my machine when I start and stop just to save on thread and time. So I wanted to show you that I do not press my seams open in this block. I don't feel that it's necessary. It lies flat enough, and I just press away from the square and towards the last strips that I've just added each time. Okay, so now it's time to join these strips to each side. Now if you're a pinner, go ahead and pin if you'd like. I'm just showing you how I do it. I just make sure that the end lines up, and then I just run it through the machine using the 1/4-inch seam allowance on my Seam Sew Easy guide. Now I call this block the PRIM Steps block because it's like a elongated courthouse steps, which is a block that you start in the center and sew around like a log cabin. So I really like these kind of blocks, and that's why I decided to call it the PRIM Steps, just as a take on the courthouse steps. And as always, you can see that I'm using my vintage iron. I've had a lot of questions about them, and I just wanted to let you know that I do have a video here on my channel explaining why I use them and where I find them. I also have a video here on how to make my design boards. They're really important when you're laying out your blocks so that you get your pieces in the right order. You can either purchase my design boards already made, or you can make them yourself. I'm also getting a lot of questions about my sewing machine. Yes, this is a vintage machine. It's called a Singer Featherweight. This one is in red. It does not come in red. Originally, they come in black or white. But you can find some people out there who paint them, and they paint them with automotive paint. My husband bought this one for me, already painted. He bought it online, and you can also find them in antique shops. And if you want to search for one online, just search Singer Featherweight or painted Singer Featherweight. I love these machines, and you know I love all things vintage, but these machines work so beautifully, and I sew with them almost exclusively. And I have several in several different colors, and I like to switch them out so that they all get the same amount of love. I do name my Singer Featherweights, and this one is named Miss Lucy after Lucille Ball. And I've recently been using my minty colored one, and she is named Miss Doris after Doris Day. Okay, now I'm just adding the last strip onto my Prim Steps block. Unfinished, the block will measure 10.5 inches wide by 16.5 inches long. And when you sew it into the quilt, it will measure 10 by 16 finished. If you're following along with my Sew Your Stash series, you can easily make this block from your 2.5-inch strips baskets. It's easy to cut and it's easy to sew, and I think it would really make a cute quilt or a table runner just sewing the blocks together. And because the strips in your basket already measure 2.5 inches tall, all you have to do is cut the lengths off, making it even easier to cut. Okay, so there's one Prim Steps block, all sewn and pressed flat. Isn't she cute? She's all ready to go into the quilt. Thanks for sewing with me today. I'll meet you on my blog this Monday where we'll be doing another applique block for the Prim quilt. I'll chat with you later.